What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another exciting episode of Attack Predictions. Today, Bankrupt bring you all the Tarkin green deck profile from the showdown we had at our Rusty Scabbard. Like I said, this deck did place in the top 8, which is pretty great. They did lose in the first round, but throughout the whole event, this deck did performed very well. And we kind of wanted to go over it just real quick. So we have Grand Moff Tarkin itself as an action for one resource. You could switch this card to exhaust. Give an experience token to one of your Imperial units, and then on the deployed side, it just happens when you attack, which is pretty good. The base that they were playing was the Energy Conversion Lab, ECL, pretty much a 25 health point base, but it has epic action where you can play a unit with ambush, and then that's cool. You know, it allows you to kind of get something out there, swing with it right away, and then you're good to go. We're going to go in order of kind of like just expensive to not expensive cards. Not necessarily the order you would play them, just the order that you could get them out sooner than later. So for the first card we're going to go over is just, the basics. Starting with the 1-drops, we have a TIE Fighter. It's just a 2-1 on the board. Something for you could just kind of get there and swing. And to be told, turn 1, you play this card, immediately give it experience, making it a 3-2. So it has a little bit more of a health, and maybe over prior turns, as long as it stays alive, you can constantly build it up if you want to. Going into the 2-drops, we have quite a few here, actually. Just depends on their importance, and also depending on when you should play these cards. So starting with Admiral Piet, it's a 1-4, but what makes him so great is that each friendly non-leader unit that costs 6 or more gains ambush on play. So when you're playing your big boys that don't have ambush, this is the card you want on the board to allow them to kind of get an attack in, especially if you're playing cards of Overwhelm, which there are quite a few in this deck that do have that. All right, going into the next one, we have Seasoned Stormtrooper. This card's only really good when you get 6 or more resources, because normally it's just a 2-3, which isn't really bad. It has enough health to kind of survive at least one hit early on. But when you get 6 resources, it gets a +2/+0. Next, we have Colonel Yularen. I just call him Colonel Sanders because that's what he reminds me of. It's a 2-3 as well, but what makes this card so good is that it has a healing factor to it. When you play a green unit, you get to heal one damage from your base. Can't go wrong with that one. Then we have the Stormtrooper Lieutenant, which is very similar to your Fleet Lieutenant. When played, you may attack with a unit. If it's an Imperial, it gets a +2/+0 for the attack. And then we have the Viper Pro Droid, which just allows you to look at your opponent's hand to know what they're playing and know what to expect for further plays. Because this deck, including the leader itself, has a ton of officials, we have the Emperor's Royal Guard, which is 3 to play, but it gains Sentinel when you have an official, which makes it's a 3/4 that could just take hits for you. Next two cards are kind of like your key to the deck to get these high cards sooner than later. One is Super Laser Technician, which is a 2-1, but when defeated, it goes into your resource and you get to ready it, which is kind of nice. The other one is Resupply, which you just get to put it into your resources. So if you get turn 3, this could be a great option for Super Laser Technician to be an ambush card. Just kind of play it, swing into a body. Or you play it early on and just keep it until your opponent plays a card and then you just swing into it then. Moving over to a couple of another kind of tech card, Strike True. I cannot talk all of a sudden. A friendly unit deals damage equal to its power to an enemy unit. So when you have a big boy on the board that's kind of stayed alive, and your opponent has a problematic, say, Sentinel or something on the board you just don't want to swing into, but you want to take damage, you pay 3 for Strike True. I think I said True Strike, but I should put Strike True, and then you can deal that said damage to whatever unit it is. Additional protection, much like Emperor's Royal Guards, we do have the Cell Block Guard, which is a 3/3 that has Sentinel just naturally on it. And then we have General Veers, which gives all your Imperial units a +1/+1, which just helps furthering those defensive protection cards or even those cards you're using to attack with. Which I guess in this game, you're really doing both with every card, just some cards are more important than the others. Going over a couple other just good cards towards the end, especially since we're playing a green deck. Command. So you could choose 2 in any order, give 2 experience tokens to a unit. A friendly unit deals damage equal to its power to a non-unique enemy unit. Put this event into play as a resource, or return a unit from your discard pile to your hand. A lot of the times, you're definitely doing the resource option, and it just depends from there. I think a lot of people tend to just do the 2 experience. Depending on where you're at in the game, that additional damage to a non-unique unit could be handy though. Barrage is just a great card for 5 resources. You give a unit +2/+2, and then you can deal that damage, divide it as you choose among any other units. And yes, you could choose your own. It doesn't specify your opponent. So like if you have this Super Legend Technician on board who hasn't been dealt with for some reason, your opponent's not playing cards in the ground area to kind of deal with it, you can just play Rolling Barrage on something else and just kind of ping it. We have Agent Callus, who is a 4/4 of Ambush. So like I mentioned earlier, Ambush, you just play it, get to swing into a unit right off the bat. But when another unique unit is defeated, you may draw a card. You can use this ability once per round though, but hey, it gives you an additional draw off it. And a lot of times when you're playing this card, he does play it as a one of. You get to you're probably getting that effect off, which is pretty nice. Next one's a Steadfast Battalion, which also is a one of, but it has Overwhelm. But when on attack, if you control a leader unit, give a friendly unit +2/+2 until the end of the phase. So a lot of times people just give it to this guy, making him a 7/7 on attack. And that way the Overwhelm kind of feeds over to whatever it is. And I think in a lot of his matches we saw, typically this was the option for the ECL. Next we have Traitorous. When this upgrade becomes attached to a non-leader unit that costs 3 or less, take control of that unit. And then when this upgrade becomes unattached from that unit, the unit returns to the owner's control. This is really great, just kind of stealing a card that could be quote-unquote problematic. Next we have the ATST. It's a 6/7 with Overwhelm. This is an Imperial. This goes for both ECL and also the Admiral Piet that we talked about earlier. Just playing this card, being able to swing it right away, especially like if you have General Veers on board, it's just a lot of damage you're able to get out there, and it's getting that damage out right away. Going to the last 3 kind of big boys, obviously we have Vader in this deck. It is a great card. It's a 5/7 of Ambush, but not just that, but when you play this card, you search top 10 cards for your deck, add up to any number of villainous units with a combined cost of 3, and you get to play them for free, which is great. Options here, like I mentioned earlier, depends where you're at. You know, you have the Emperor's Royal Guard, you have the cell block guard. If you have other cards on the board, you can play Stormtrooper Lieutenant to get those attacks out. You could play, the TIE Fighter, if you play like a 2-cost. So there's some options here. Just hopefully, you see them. And as a reminder, when you choose the order how these things go, so when you play Vader, Ambush is kind of there, but you resolve its effect first, and say you play the Stormtrooper or Lieutenant, and then you choose something else to attack first, and then you can attack with Vader afterwards if you wanted to. Next, we have the Reinforcement Walker. This works great with the Admiral Piet because it's an 8 cost, so it's more than 6. And then on play, and when this card attacks, you look up top card of your deck, either draw that card or discard it and heal 3 from your base. This is a great card, and combined with that Admiral card to get a draw 2, because you play it and immediately ambush it into another unit, and boom. And the last one, we play one of Devastator. It is a Sentinel Overwhelm, and when this card is when played, you may deal damage to a unit equal to the number of resources you control. That's obviously doing 10 right off the bat because it costs 10 to play. So this should in most cases clear out any threat. And then your opponent has to get over a 10/10. And then when you attack this card, if your opponent has anything in the space area, it might get run over, and then all that excess damage is going to hit the base as well. So there is a sideboard we got going on here, which is more or less just tech pieces depending on what's more important. They played one of the attack pattern deltas, which is just good for giving 3 of your friendly units pluses for the phase. I think it stacks from it's a 1/1, 2/2, and 3/3. And then you have the Star Viper. When you have initiative, it has Restore 2 on it. So it's a 3/3 for 3. It's as a body by itself, that's not bad. Like I said, if you were to get the initiative token, it's even better. Then we have another additional Strike True, just depending on the certain matchups that they were to come across. 1 Grand Moff Tarkin itself. On play, search top 5 cards of your deck, and you get to add 2 Imperials to your hand. And then we have 2 of the 97th Legions. Their strength and health are based on your resources. So if you play this when you have 10 resources, this is a 10/10 for 7. It's not bad. I think Force Lightning, unfortunately, will completely kill it, though. So just be careful who you're playing against. And 2 Relentless, really good against blue, because blue has a lot of cards that can just say goodbye, goodbye, goodbye. This forces your opponent to have to play an event card. and then have to play a second one afterwards because the first one. So the first event played by each opponent becomes useless pretty much, which is pretty cool. So that was from our top 8 showcase the Tarkin green players build. Hope you all enjoy it, and keep in mind I think I have access to 2 more coming down the road. Just look forward to those if you're interested in this. But yeah, that's it. Bye.